30 to 50% of people with recurrent depression will go on to have mild cognitive impairment. And
I'm sorry, can you say that again? That's a really important number for people to know.
30 to 50% of people with mild cognitive impairment or depression will go on to have dementia.
Welcome to the Brain Fit Podcast, where we share the cutting-edge science on how you can improve your memory and live a happier, healthier life.
My guest today is a very controversial doctor. His name is Dr. Robert Hedaya. He's a medical doctor, and he works for one of the top universities in the United States. When he reversed Alzheimer's in one of his patients, his university forbid him from speaking about it, in particular because he was able to do it without using pharmaceutical drugs. In this interview, Dr. Robert Hedaya shares it all about what happened and how he was able to reverse Alzheimer's disease and memory loss in his patients.
Welcome. I'm so excited for our next interview. We are honored to have Dr. Robert Hedaya, a medical doctor from Georgetown University, and he's also founder of the Whole Psychiatry Brain Recovery Center, and he's creator and founder of Highlane Technology, which is a really interesting technology that can help heal the brain. And he's actually a little bit controversial in talking about how functional medicine can help heal the brain. And we're just honored to have you here. Thank you so much, Dr. Hedaya.
Thank you for having me. It's a wonderful opportunity.
And so let's get right into it. What's the current medical science believe? What's the mainstream establishment believe about Alzheimer's disease and dementia? And then what's really true about it? Can we prevent Alzheimer's disease? Can we heal our brains? And what are most medical doctors not understanding about Alzheimer's and dementia?
So, I mean, you know, as well as I do, that if you go to your regular neurologist or internist, whatever, and you're having signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever it is, they're basically going to tell you, call your lawyer, arrange your things, have a good time. There's nothing you can do. Maybe I'll do some Aricept or something. It doesn't really work, but we could try it. For some people, it might work. That's about it, right? And now we know, and actually we've known for a long time, I reversed my first case of dementia in 2009.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. God bless you. That's so wonderful.
It was actually very clear to me in 2002 that after I wrote my second book and it was published, and they wanted me to write another book. I wanted to write a book on actually dementia, be basically using hormones and correcting immune, inflammatory, infectious problems, because it's so clear from the basic science that this is in large measure, there's many pieces to this, obviously, but the big piece of it is the immune dysfunction, infection, inflammation. So, what do we know now? We know that the best thing to do is prevent dementia. We can reverse mild cognitive impairment, and I'll show you some data. We could even reverse early stage dementia. We can certainly stabilize much of the time. It's a massive undertaking, however, in terms of lifestyle testing, implementation of medicine, nutrients, diet, lifestyle change, etc. Doable. If you want to save your brain, you can do it. You should do it. Absolutely. Be very compliant and really do it. And it really works for like 84% of people, according to Bredesen's published study in 2022. So, we can do that, but it's a lot. It's a lot. So the real deal is prevention, right? And that should start as early as possible, and that should be culturally embedded.
Absolutely. And so what you're saying is that the current medical understanding, generally speaking, I think these are GPs, general practitioners, as well as even some gerontologists say there's nothing to do about Alzheimer's. You got your diagnosis. That means you're going to die from this. That means go to your lawyer, get your stuff in order. And then you said something fascinating. I want to ask you a little bit about this. You said, here's a drug that doesn't really work. You can take this. It might help, but it probably doesn't work. And frankly, there's some side effects. Aducanumab, there's potential for brain bleeding, which is a very serious side effect. And so why is it that most doctors don't know or believe that Alzheimer's is preventable or treatable? And why are doctors dispensing drugs that don't work and they know don't work and even have some serious side effects?
You're going to get me upset, because when I start to talk about this, I get upset because it's not rational. The problem, I believe, is in the type of people who come into medicine and the type of training in medicine. So you're you want, when they select people for medical school, they're selecting people with fabulous memories. All right. They can assimilate all this data and they can follow algorithms and they will follow the protocol. And then they're indoctrinated by the universities, which are funded in large measure by the drug companies. So we have a model that's embedded in the system. And so you ask them to think about a problem. Are you serious? Think about a problem. I actually joke that was it Apollo 13 or Apollo 11, where they almost didn't get back to Earth. And nowadays, if we had a current generation astronaut on that, they would not have gotten back to Earth because they don't know how to solve problems. They know how to do algorithms, right? So that's the problem. Now, it's part of human nature. People don't like change. They can't tolerate anxiety of not knowing, right? When I was in my training in Georgetown, at 12 o'clock, all psychiatric stuff was due to a serotonin deficiency. At 1 o'clock, it was the family system. Lunch, 2 or 3 o'clock, it was cognitive, behavioral. 4 o'clock, it was sociocultural. And I'm like, everyone has this narrow lens, right? This is the problem. This is a problem, right? They're so sure this is the problem. And I was like, what is going on here? And it took me 3 years. We were actually advised to just pick one method and learn it. That's it. Don't try and struggle with this. I kept my mind open because I wanted to integrate it. And it took me what now I think is such a simple and obvious thing. It just, these are all relevant. It just depends the power of your microscope. Are you looking at the power of the quantum, of the molecule, of the atom, of the system, of the psychology, of the organ, of the couple, of the relationships, of the family system, of the environment, of the culture, of the spiritual, what level are you, what's your microscope, what's your analytic tool? That's where you're going to find one aspect of the problem, right? One aspect. So the problem is that people don't think that way. They're not choosing people to come into medical school to think that way. And they're indoctrinated to think in a very, very linear way. And that's good for the stability of the system. It's not good for innovation.
So you're saying, this is really interesting. You're saying this starts way upstream. This starts with the selection of people to medical school. And then you're saying the indoctrination in medical school to not train thinkers, but train people who will follow an algorithm. And right now, so I'm going to put this piece together. Right now, the algorithm is prescribe a drug that doesn't work. Right. And you said it's illogical and irrational. I agree. It's irrational to give someone something that's not likely to work and has the potential to harm the brain, to create brain bleeds and so forth. And what really gets me excited is that there are so many supplements that are shown to be safe and effective that can help prevent the accumulation of plaque, that can lower blood sugar, that can increase acetylcholine activity in the brain. And these can be really helpful for memory and slowing down, stopping, and helping prevent Alzheimer's disease. And doctors aren't prescribing them. Doctors aren't saying, hey, curcumin's really safe and effective. Give that a try. Ceylon cinnamon, lion's mane. Goodness gracious, have 3 cups of coffee. That'll get you up. That'll get you out of bed, and you're less likely to have depression. They're not prescribing these things. They're giving a drug that doesn't work. And it's mind-boggling to me.
If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, I want you to know there is hope. Alzheimer's is preventable and it is even reversible. In fact, we are reversing Alzheimer's in my medical clinic here in Florida. My partner and medical director is Dr. Josh Hellman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease, and we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. If you'd like to learn more about working with us to both prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with other forms of dementia, we would love to hear from you and send you some free information so you can learn what we are doing and see if it's a fit for you to come down and work with us in our clinic. We also work with other clinics around the country to help patients both prevent Alzheimer's as well as to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with dementia. So if you'd like to learn more, go to brainpowerclinics.com. Go to brainpowerclinics.com and then enter your information. We will send you some free information, and then we hope to work with you, if we can be helpful to you, to help you prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease.
So I wanted to ask you, first of all, I want to make space if you want to say anything about doctors not suggesting supplements or exercise, which we know is the number one drug for the brain, right?
I want to point out that it's the same psychology that really it had criminal consequences, in my opinion, around COVID. And now I'm a psychiatrist, and COVID obviously was an emergency. I ended up treating over 100 people with COVID, and in the height of this whole thing, and I didn't have one person end up in the hospital.
Oh, wonderful.
I went in for 3 days. He was, had complications, but he came out. He was fine. No, the key was obvious if you think about it, that you catch this thing very quickly. Now, at the time, we didn't know hydroxychloroquine looked like a reasonable bet, but we didn't have anything else. And then when ivermectin came down the pike, it was like, wow, that was really great. That was turning people around left and right. And Regeneron was amazing also, by the way. But no, that was all shoved on the rug for financial reasons.
What's fascinating, what happened with Florida, they were using monoclonal antibodies, and then the federal government tried to step in and say you can't use monoclonal antibodies. And I said, I'm not a COVID expert, and I'm not allowed to talk about COVID on my social media because it'll be taken down, and then I'm gone. It's shocking to me that the federal government tried to prevent doctors from prescribing something. That doesn't seem like the role of a government. That seems like an issue between me and my doctor. And you don't need to regulate what doctors do. Simply give them access to the science, and then ideally they'll make the right decision. But saying you can't use this treatment that you think is effective, that's not the way to help doctors do better. Give them data. If you have data that monoclonal antibodies aren't effective, share that with doctors, but don't say you can't prescribe that. I just thought that was amazing. They really came hard on down on the state of Florida.
Tells you that there's other things going on. Some of it's human nature, some of it's fear, some of it's financial, some of it's power. It's just a lot of different things, and maybe even other things going on. And what I'm saying to you is that it's kind of the same mindset. Like when COVID happened, people weren't trying to figure out what to do. Well, I mean, some doctors were actually. Well, what's the logic here? The Titanic is going down, and someone comes to you and says, "I was once on a ship that was going down, and we did this." Are you going to say, "I'm sorry, we can't do it. We don't have any evidence"? Where's the evidence? No, you don't have anything else to do. That's what you're going to try, unless you have something that's a better idea. That's what we had. The Titanic was going down, and they're claiming, well, we don't have evidence. Let's everything was in place. Hydroxychloroquine was in all the pharmacies. It was all in place.
It was proven to be safe and effective, or just simple health behaviors. I was so upset when I was staying at Whole Foods, and I was, the patches on the ground stand 6 feet apart. And I'm like, yelling to the person next to me. I'm like, hey, how's your day? And then I get to the front of the line, and there's sugar there. There's just bags of, candy. And I said to the store manager, I said, excuse me, I'm not allowed to stand 6 feet in front of you because of COVID, but your store is selling sugar, which we know impairs the immune system. I think this is not a good idea. Why are you doing this? Can someone please make a better decision? This is really upsetting to me as someone who wants better health for people. And I'm amazed that, people on television who came out who could reach millions of people didn't say, reduce your sugar, get more hugs, drink less alcohol, go outside for more exercise, spend time in your spiritual practice, spend time with your loved ones. It wasn't that. It was stay at home, watch the TV, and be scared, which we know impairs the immune system, and stock up on your comfort foods, stock up on your sugar. It was just fascinating to me that that's what happened.
Not logical. There's other motivations and intentions, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. It's just pretty obvious, it's just pretty obvious.
And so there's problems in mainstream medicine about Alzheimer's disease because there's an indoctrination that there's nothing to do about it. It's all genetic. Get your affairs in order. So people ask me this very frequently. What do patients do when their doctor tells them there's nothing to do? Or what do patients need to know to interview a doctor or find the right doctor? Because they want to be working with doctors who understand the current science of Alzheimer's, that it can be prevented, that it can be treated. And so how do they either educate their doctors, or how do they find the right doctor for themselves or their parent or loved one, so that way they're getting effective treatment and not getting what I call the nocebo effect, right? I think that's the term, the nocebo effect. Instead of saying, it's the opposite of a placebo. It's telling them you can't get better. So how do they avoid the doctors that are actually harming patients with the idea that they can't get better from Alzheimer's? And how do they find a great doctor who can help them or help their loved one?
They're in a much better position today than they were 10 years ago. Now Dr. Bredesen has really taken the field up. They can just look him up. He has an organization, I think it's called Apollo Health. And hey, they have doctors who are trained by him. And then you want someone who's got experience, a significant amount of experience, and obviously who you can make a connection with, and ideally someone who's certified in functional medicine, I would say, as well.
Is it worth it to try to educate a doctor? I've been telling people to print studies and then bring that to their doctor's appointment and say, look, do you want to see some current, I get, this is fascinating to me. Doctors will say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't think it's worth it. I mean, you want to throw him an article or whatever, that's fine. Maybe he'll read it. But it takes time to learn how to do this anyway. So don't spend your time educating him. If you want to educate him so he can be on board and do backup for the other doctors doing the main job and be on board and learn as you go through your process with another doctor, great, do that. That's a nice thing to do. Don't fight with him. If he's interested, great. If he's not interested, leave him alone,
Okay, so that's a real time saver. So if you want to find a great doctor who can help either you or your loved one prevent or potentially prevent Alzheimer's or reverse memory loss associated with Alzheimer's, find someone who's already doing it. Find someone, you can look Dr. Dale Bredesen at Apollo Health, find someone there, and find someone who's doing functional medicine.
If you are having trouble sleeping, I have a great supplement I want you to know about. It's called Roar Lion's Mane. So lion's mane has many different benefits for the brain and for the body. Lion's mane improves memory. Lion's mane reduces stress, reduces anxiety. It helps slow down aging by lowering inflammation, and it helps with sleep. It helps you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and fall back to sleep. I learned about lion's mane about 5 years ago when I was having trouble sleeping. When I took it, after about a week, I noticed that I was sleeping better and I was able to fall back to sleep, and I was having vivid dreams, which is really cool. And now I take lion's mane 5 to 6 nights a week. And I do this because it helps me fall back to sleep. So when I wake up, I'm no longer anxious when I wake up, and I'm able to kind of lay still in bed and fall back to sleep. And I get vivid dreams, which I really like, and it improves my REM sleep. So if you'd like to try some of my Roar Lion's Mane risk-free, go to roarlionsmane.com or robertlove.net to learn more.
So can we get into the controversy here? You shared before this call, before we started recording, you were actually not allowed to talk about something at Georgetown University, which is one of the top universities in the country. You would think these people are interested in science, and as scientists, we need to embrace evidence, especially when we don't agree with it. That's the most interesting data. When I don't know it or understand it, I don't need my ideas confirmed. I want my ideas challenged with new data. And so, can you talk a little bit about what you were not allowed to talk about at Georgetown as a full professor in the medical school?
Actually, medical science is almost moribund. I mean, the last nail is not in the coffin yet, but it's almost moribund, really. So this is maybe 10 years ago. I went to the chairman and I said, I'd really like to present some information on functional medicine. I have a series of 23 patients that I treated for treatment-resistant depression, which, as you may know, according to the STAR-D trial, only about 25% with standard treatments, which is meds and augmentation strategies, cognitive behavioral therapy or interpersonal therapy, 25% will recover fully. That's it. That's the model, 25%. So I said, I have data, 23 patients, where the mean Beck depression inventory when we started was 34.3, I believe it was. And that's kind of in the severe range of depression, low level severity.
For those of you who don't know, the Beck Depression Inventory is a scale that measures basically how severe depression is. And then, Dr. Hedaya, could you please define functional medicine? That way everyone's on the same page. We know what you're referring to.
Functional medicine, in a simple terms, is root cause medicine. You have a chronic illness, you want to get to the root cause. It's great for chronic illness, not so good for broken bones, but really good for chronic illness. So we look at lifestyle factors, relationships, sleep, stresses, but we also look at digestion and nutrition, immune function, inflammation, infections, detoxification, oxidative stress, mitochondrial function, methylation, genetics, epigenetics, hormones, structural problems, things like that. We kind of try and track everything.
I mean, that's some serious science right there. All those things you mentioned are very measurable and really important to overall health as well as to brain health. And so my thought is some people think functional medicine or that word sounds a little bit woo-woo, but from what you just described, it sounds very hardcore science.
Hardcore, it's data-based, at least the way I practice it. It's data-based. We do my evaluations about 4.5 hours long. I'm with the patient, physical exam, reviewing old labs. And then depending on what I see, based on all the information, we say, well, let's look in your immune system a little closer, or your hormones a little closer, or let's look into your brain with quantitative EEG a little more, or volumetric, right, whatever. And then based on what we find, then we create a treatment protocol.
4 hours with the patient. So I love this data-based medicine. I think, so how do people get access to this when the standard appointment with a medical doctor is 15 minutes. And then, if the medical doctor's good, 2 of those minutes are spent building rapport and maybe telling a joke, right? The research shows that when a doctor's funny, they're much less likely to be sued. So hopefully they're saying, hi, how are you? Good to see you. Here's a really funny joke. Tell me what's wrong. Now they got 10 minutes to try and diagnose and treat and answer questions. How on earth can functional medicine, which sounds really effective, be implemented in our current medical model?
I shouldn't say again. Now, let's say something changed and I'm transported into a medical system where I have no choice. I have to work in a medical system and I get 10 minutes with you. Okay. I bet I could do some stuff because I've got 43, 44 years under my belt of learning deeply at a very deep level what's going on. And then I can pick stuff up pretty quickly. So I might be able to pick something up. But the truth is, if you're doing algorithms for years and years and 10-minute things where you got to dictate your note and make the patient feel good and make a diagnosis and pick a drug, and then bill,
that's exactly it, right? Make a diagnosis, pick a drug. Goodness gracious.
Tell me how much you're going to learn in the process of your career. Not really, you're not going to learn too much. So I think it's not really reasonable to expect functional medicine to enter, but a lot of doctors are, finding that they're burning out and they're looking for a better way of practicing, and they're, functional medicine is growing.
So what's the solution? I know this is beyond the scope of, preventing Alzheimer's. This is now really fixing a systemic problem in the practice of medicine. What's your thought on a solution to this problem? Because functional medicine sounds like an answer, maybe not the answer, but one of the answers.
In my opinion, I'm a root cause guy, right? I try to look at the root cause. I believe the problem is not medicine, dysfunctional medicine, the current medical paradigm is a symptom of a dysfunctional culture. We have a dysfunctional culture. There's a book I just started reading, The Myth of Normal, which really goes into great detail about this. And, we're embedded in a culture that has a lot of, I don't have to take care of myself. The state will take care of me, they'll tell me how should I take this or not take it? Should I, I can only drive 25 miles an hour here. I don't know why. They need money, I guess, for, speed counters, whatever it is. But, where's the freedom to take a vaccine, to not take it? Where's your freedom? No, the state is going to be my father and my mother. So the state will make me well. No, it's a joke, really, because medical system is really built, really to make money. Really, it's built to make money, and and money is the primary value in this country. That's what we're trained. It's a material culture. Now, that's in the main cities. I think it's a little different actually when you get out of the main cities. I think that there's in the heartland of America and the further out you go and everything, people still have really good values actually. But what you see in the media and everything else is really twisted. And it's people, men, women, sexually, politically, all kinds of ways that people are sacrificed to the culture, which has one goal, which is stability and financial solvency, let's say.
Wow. So our dysfunctional medical system is a symptom of our dysfunctional culture. It's a matter of values. Wow. I was not expecting such a profound philosophical answer from a scientist.
But listen to this. Take a bacterium, right? One bacterium, put it in a petri dish, right? How that bacteria expresses itself is going to be a function of the culture medium that you put it in, right? You have one culture medium that expresses certain genetics, another culture medium expresses other genetics. It's still the same bacterium, but it expresses and it behaves differently, right? We're the same. You take a person and say, you got to lose weight. Okay, you get on a bus and the ads are for Twinkies and alcohol or whatever, and then you're on the radio or this or your computer. What's coming in? What are you being fed informationally? What are the people around you? They're I don't know what the percentage now is. Americans are 40, 60% overweight, obese, whatever.
Oh, so goodness, it's so bad.
But what's your culture medium? So, and a doctor tells you, stop the high glycemic index foods. Like, what are your chances? What are your odds? You're just a bacterium in a culture. You think you're all independent and everything, but no, you're not. You're a function of who you're around, you know?
Absolutely. So therefore, one of the best things we can do is surround ourselves with healthy people, people ideally who don't smoke, who don't drink too much, who love each other, who have good values, who value health, who value family. And you mentioned this a little bit, value freedom, the freedom to make choices and so forth.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Microingredients. All of Microingredients products are third-party tested, so you know you are getting the highest quality products. They have a great collagen that can help reduce wrinkles, also great for your skin, hair, nails. MCT oil, I love this in my coffee, great for the brain, also great for weight loss. Their blueberry powder, this is organic blueberry powder. This is fantastic for your brain. And then they also have a great curcumin supplement that's very good. So this blueberry powder, this is organic blueberries, which is so important. And this is such a great deal. This is 350 servings in this. This is $10 of organic blueberries at Costco. This is, this is $20 or $30. And this is organic blueberry powder, 350 servings. This is $10. This is like 3 or 4 days worth. Such a great value. I add this to my smoothie. I add it to desserts. I add it to my yogurt made of coconut. This is so good. Great for kids who are trying to get more nutrition in them. So try the organic blueberry powder. It's a terrific value. It'll last you a long time. And you get lots of great antioxidants and polyphenols that are terrific for your brain. To get this, go to Amazon and then use the coupon code RobertLove at checkout.
So let's get back to the controversy here. We went down a rabbit hole. This is so interesting. So you were basically forbidden from speaking about functional medicine at Georgetown University, the university where you are a professor.
Yes, forbidden, strong word, but I guess that's what it amounts to. They told me, no, it's not really database, Well, it is more database than anything they're doing. But they said, no, you can't. No, we're not going to allow it. No. Now, the good thing is I teach the residents in psychiatry, and I really for many years was teaching them psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology, which is, like a nice piece of functional medicine, right? So I kind of broaden their thinking that way because all they're getting all day long is, which drug to pick,
This is, it's fascinating to me that an institution that teaches scientists and doctors would say this is unscientific when it's just, there's nothing but science behind this, right? It's kind of Orwellian doublespeak, right? No, you can't talk about this.
I told you, they have their model. They're funded by drugs. They do studies. They get money for studies. They don't really want to upset the apple cart. Yeah. And it's human nature, really. It's human nature. This is the way it is for thousands of years.
It's unfortunately how the big money is affecting things. I forget what hospital this was. There's a children's hospital that was making a big deal about, they were supporting reducing the availability of soda for a community. And they're supporting this bill that would have this big warning on soda labels. I don't remember the exact details, but this is basically what happened. And what happened was Coca-Cola gave this hospital like $2 or $4 million, and then they dropped their petition to support this bill, right? So basically, Coca-Cola handed money to a children's hospital, which is a wonderful thing to do. But what happened was now this warning that would have protected potentially millions of people from the dangers of drinking refined sugar in soda. And I'm not just blaming Coca-Cola. Any refined sugar in a soda without fiber is, generally speaking, harmful to the brain, harmful to the metabolic health. And it's just an example of how money can step in and prevent the correct education and prevent the correct policy. And it's really very unfortunate.
It's money, it's inertia, it's anxiety. I gave a lecture maybe 8-9 years ago at a center for elderly people. And I saw what they were feeding them, when they're coming for their...
Oh my gosh, the food at nursing homes is crazy. I can't believe you're feeding this to people. Or in hospitals too. They're feeding them Jell-O with aspartame. I'm like, what are you doing?
I mean, like, really? Are you trying to destroy their memories? Is that what you're trying? But they didn't listen. Now I've been giving some more lectures to them, and they're actually finally listening. So that's good.
So you were able to reverse memory loss in patients with Alzheimer's as early as 2009. Can you tell us what you did? How were you able to do this?
So this was a woman. It was functional medicine, basically, changing her meds.
So some medications can actually increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease or memory loss by blocking neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, for example. Is that what?
Yeah, that's what I did. And basically straighten out the hormones, straighten out the diet, some exercise, help her with her sleep, change her meds. And she had, like, I'm going to say it was pretty astounding, actually. Her mini mental status was somewhere around 22. and went up to 28 or 29 in 2 or 3 months or something like that.
Oh my goodness. That's great. So I know, and then I know this is going to be based upon the patient, but any meds that you would recommend either to avoid if not necessary, or to reconsult the pharmacist and medical doctor because they're known to impair memory, for example, anticholinergics?
Anticholinergic, antidepressants, the older antidepressants they're known to do that, but even regular SSRIs or SNRIs, like Effexor, Cymbalta, that they can actually do that. That could be a tip-off actually to dementia. When someone takes one of these things and they actually get confused, that could be a tip-off that there's a dementing process.
So the old ones like Prozac or Fluoxetine?
All of that, fluoxetine, any of them, Lexapro. If you have a mild cognitive problem that's significant, let's say, but you're still functioning or ostensibly functioning, and you take one of those and things get worse in terms of your cognition and confusion or personality change, things like that, then that's a tip-off usually to dementia. But there are lots of things. I'm sure there's a long list of drugs, the benzodiazepines, the anti-seizure meds, they can all impair cognition, right? There's a long list of things. Aromatase inhibitors can cause problems. They block the estrogen production. That can cause problems in cognition.
So antidepressants, SSRIs, are one of the most commonly prescribed drugs in the market, which is fascinating because they kind of work, and you basically take them for the rest of your life or however long you don't want depression, is my understanding. So what do people do instead? So let's say someone's on an SSRI and they would like to do something else. What else could they do?
Depression, you're saying?
Yes, for depression or anxiety, right? People take SSRIs for anxiety as well.
That's a book in itself. So the simple answer is functional medicine. So I never finished the story. So I had 23 patients with Beck depression inventory of 34 on average, 34 and change. And by 10 months, they were all under 10. And the mean was 7. In other words, all 23 or 24, I forget which one, treatment-resistant depression patients, all of that.
35 to 7?
7.
Oh my gosh. So for those of you who don't understand this inventory, that is a massive change from severe depression to very mild.
Right. So now I was doing functional medicine. I was a psychopharmacologist, trained as a psychopharmacologist, was doing a lot of psychopharm. And then when I wrote my second book, I was flooded with people who wanted the functional medicine. So I'm doing the functional medicine, and 2 or 3 years out, I'm like, all my patients, not only are they getting better, but their diabetes is going away, the osteoporosis is going away, MS lesions disappearing. Maybe I'm having selective attention to the good cases and I'm ignoring the bad cases, right? The bad outcomes. So I hired a statistician. I said, I want you to review my sequential cases, all the cases of treatment-resistant depression that I've treated in the last, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years. And, show me what the data is. That's where the data came from. And I was like, boy, I wasn't fooling myself, And so that's kind of what I wanted to present at Georgetown, which they would have no part in.
I'd love to ask you a quick question about lithium. Lithium's been a hot topic. Low-dose lithium has been a hot topic. My understanding of lithium up until a year ago was just simply, that's a drug that's used for bipolar disorder. I don't know how it works. Can you talk a little bit about lithium and then the potential benefits of low-dose lithium, and then a little bit about how it works with bipolar?
Lithium is neuroprotective, right? And I think there are studies that show that in areas of the world where the lithium level in the water is higher, the rates of dementia are actually lower. So there seems to be some protective mechanism. What's the mechanism? I don't think anybody knows, because there are at least 8 mechanisms, right? So, and I don't remember them all. So, it can decrease presynaptic dopamine. I think it affects GSK, the ion channels, NMDA receptor, glutamate availability increase. There's a bunch of mechanisms. It's probably all of them, So low-dose lithium could be a very nice protective, neuroprotective type of thing. Now, higher dose lithium can be very useful in neuropsychiatric disorders. It can lower your thyroid function, probably will, if you're taking a therapeutic, meaning medically.
Is that why bipolar people on it can gain weight? Is that it's affecting thyroid function?
gain weight because the thyroid is not properly treated. If that's properly treated and they're on lithium, they won't really gain weight.
Okay.
So as an example, I have a woman who came to me. She was about 70 years old with aphasia, so she couldn't speak really. She could speak a few words, but she could understand, but she couldn't speak. And she didn't want to do any functional medicine. Told her husband, I said, this is kind of pointless. This is a very hard program, costs a lot of money. No, you got to do it. You got to do it. I said, all right, I'll try laser. We didn't do any functional medicine. She's diabetic. She's heart disease. She got a train wreck,
Goodness. Unfortunately, that's about par for the course. Most people have most people have some sort of insulin resistance plus some risk of heart disease.
Yeah. So what happened is he wanted me to try the laser. I said, well, I don't think it's going to really work because we didn't do any functional medicine, but give it a shot. So I'm sitting in my office making the laser plan based on her QEG, and I'm sitting there getting ready to go into the laser room, and this pops out of my mouth. God, I need a miracle. Just pops out of my mouth. I'm not, it just pops out of my mouth. I go into the laser room. I saw lasering her. She starts talking.
And this woman who has a diagnosis of not being able to talk.
She has aphasia. Yeah, she can't talk. She starts talking. I have tears in my eyes. Her husband has tears in his eye. We do more treatments. She starts talking. I to the degree that I could have a 45-minute therapy session with her, and alone. And she starts telling me about the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her mother. We had never talked about before. And this is very interesting because underlying the vulnerability for dementia, there are many things. Depression is one of the things that underlies the vulnerability. Like 30 to 50% of people with recurrent depression will go on to have mild cognitive impairment. And
I'm sorry, can you say that again? That's a really important number for people to know.
30 to 50% of people with mild cognitive impairment or depression will go on to have dementia. People with PTSD, which she had, also will have increased risk of dementia, in particular, frontotemporal dementia. Okay? In particular, frontotemporal dementia. So the depression is actually, and the PTSD are actually scars, if you will, in the brain that set up patterns, do damage in areas that underpin cognitive function, right? And so this woman had years of trauma growing up, and and then her mother convinced her that her husband was doing some terrible things, and she believed it. And so she was living with trauma for years and years and years. So I get her talking, and she's telling me about all this. And as she talks, it becomes apparent that she's delusional, that she thinks her husband's having an affair, and she's up all night long prowling the house with a club, looking for intruders. And so I gave her lithium, and the lithium really helped her tremendously to keep that psychosis under control. I had to stop the laser treatment because I didn't know if it was activating her or not, because she wasn't talking, so I didn't know. So I wanted her to go up on the lithium dose. Then I would resume the laser and get her talking again, but she refuses to go up on the lithium dose. So it's it's a sad thing because the treatment's there. There's so much to do. It worked, but she's not willing. Her reasoning is poor, right? So I can't really get her any further.
Well, you made a big difference. That's really wonderful. I'd love to get into the details with you about how to prevent Alzheimer's disease. This health summit is about the truth about Alzheimer's disease, which it is preventable, and it can, and memory loss can be reversed. I'd love to know what you've seen in your own practice, and as a scientist, as a medical doctor, as a psychiatrist. What are the keys to preventing Alzheimer's disease?
So the keys, there are, according to the literature, the simple thing is this, right? Sidney Baker, I think it was Sidney Baker said, take out the bad and put in the good, right? That's the simple.
Great way to boil it down.
Take out the bad. So limit your chemical exposure, get rid of your toxins, your mold toxins. Mold is a big problem. Eat a lot of above ground vegetables, green, leafy, different colors, eat the rainbow. right? I don't know if it's the sauna or if it's the socialization in the sauna, because the studies, I think it was in Denmark, that showed a benefit. But I don't know if it was the socialization or the sauna or both. I don't know. But maybe sauna, maybe sauna helps secrete some toxins. Eat clean food, organic food, clean air if you can. So chemical, mercury, lead, all that kind of stuff. You want to get the chemicals out. Now, the truth is, as I said before, we're bacterium in a petri dish. The world is polluted. You can't get away from it. You just want to build up your detox pathways and limit your exposure as much as you can. And that will make a big difference, right?
Can you talk a little bit about what mold does in the brain and how that increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease?
So mold depends on the type. There are different mechanisms of the different mold toxins, right? Like ochratoxin A from Penicillium aspergillus. It causes cognitive problems routinely. Stachybotrys, black mold, causes cognitive problems routinely. Now, the mechanism, I don't know what it is. Could probably multiple mechanisms. Could be mitochondrial, hormonal, could be radical damage, probably all of the above. Probably, I'm sure, affecting membrane fluidity. So a lot of mold is like a big, big problem. And if you have mold and you don't get rid of it, you might get a little better, but you won't get all better. That's for sure. That's for sure. And that's hard because people live in homes where they're full of mold and the building materials are, not so great. So, but that's essential to make sure you're in a mold-free environment, right?
So that likely affects people of lower income. I think they're probably more likely to be in homes or offices that have mold.
I don't agree with that. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Okay.
Everywhere. I have a patient who's in California who's remediating her home. $300,000 remediation. The home, nice home, beautiful home.
Goodness.
Full of mold.
So everyone's at risk for this.
What better is, equal opportunity,
Oh, and what do you think about fluoride? Fluoride in the water. To what extent do you think that is potentially damaging brains, memory, and potentially increasing the risk of dementia?
Great question. I don't think I've investigated to say, just like a couple, my dentist convinced me it wasn't a problem. I always thought it had a negative effect on the thyroid. A couple of weeks ago, I read something that suggested that actually really is a problem. My guess is, it's probably a problem, but I don't know enough to tell you, this is the mechanism and for sure this is the evidence. I don't know.
I really appreciate that. And then you're one of the world's leading experts in this field. I love that you're able to say, I don't know. This is to me, this is a mark of a really great scientist, because so many scientists that they're not, I don't know if they actually are scientists, but they're not willing to look at data that disagrees with them, or they're not able to say, I know. They want to know everything, and they don't want to be persuaded otherwise. And you're saying, look, I've looked at some data. I don't know enough to make a conclusion. This is my guess, but I don't have all the facts. That's just really great practice of science. And so for those of you watching this, look for this when you listen to people, when you hear experts talk about their field. If they don't know an answer, they should be able to say that and explain why, and be okay saying, I don't know, because the idea that they know everything relevant to their field, it's just not true. What else can people do to prevent Alzheimer's? So we got take out the bad, put in the good. So remove mold, remove toxins, heavy metals, improve the diet, eating clean things, eat the rainbow of vegetables. What else can people do to help prevent Alzheimer's disease?
All fish, avoid tuna, avoid swordfish, eat lots of garlic, cilantro, detox, work on inflammation, make sure you don't have gum disease, treat it well, make sure your gut's working well. If you have any exposure to tick-borne diseases, make sure you test properly for that. If you have cardiovascular problems, treat those. Make sure your cholesterol's under control. Inflammation is really like a big piece of the problem, big piece of the puzzle. Stress, relationships, attitudes, finances, lack of community, isolation. These are all significant vulnerability factors. If you look at the blue zones, okay, and you see that these people are swimming in the same toxic soup as everyone else, and they're living to 100, 105. Why? Because they have community, okay? They have community. Now, in the United States, we don't have community. I'm going to tell you, I just moved a year ago to a community, my community that I grew up with. It's a Sephardic Jewish community, and it's a very tight community. And wow, you don't know what you're missing till you have it. You just don't know. I lived for 40 years in Bethesda, Maryland. Friends, synagogue, teaching, practice, wife, kids, I didn't have community though. I didn't have community. And now I go out, and every time I go out, I run into 3 or 4 people that I know, and I have a meaningful contact point. And I'm telling you, Robert, it's like medicine. It's it's love. It's medicine. And I never knew, I never knew. We have a breakdown of community. It's a big, big problem. Big, big problem.
I love this. And so I love this that here you're a hardcore scientist, you're a medical doctor, you're a psychiatrist, and you're saying, listen, it's about community. Like in the blue zones, foods matter, but look at their communities, and the community is medicine. I love that. I'm gonna write that down. And please, all of you, Daniel Goleman in his book Social Intelligence shared that loneliness is a greater risk factor for disease than smoking. I'm not recommending you take up smoking. I'm recommending you stop loneliness and you seek out community, ideally a healthy community of people that that don't smoke, that don't drink too much, that love each other, that are open-minded, where they accept freedom and so forth. But community is medicine. I just absolutely love that.
And I would say to you, where do you find community now? I mean, okay, I have the functional medicine community. I go to the conferences. I'm on the faculty, but it's a community, but it's not really a community. You know what I mean? Not really. You have some community at work, but it's not. This is what I'm trying to say. It's great, but it's not the same. It's not like, I don't know where you grew up. When I grew up, around neighbors, friends, family, cousins, aunts, uncles, there were touch points of people who I knew were in my life. They weren't friends who would move and disappear, and maybe I never hear from them. This was blood relatives. Okay, blood relatives, and a synagogue or a church or a mosque or whatever, where I personally think, I could be wrong, and that Buddhist community, I don't know, you need to really understand what community means, okay? It doesn't mean what we usually think of when we say community. It really is something much more intense and integral, so you really got to look for that. It's just so important.
I would like to take a brief break and acknowledge our sponsor, Air Doctor. So it is a really good idea to get an air filter for your home, your office, and especially your bedroom, because our air is not clean, and an unclean air can bring toxins into our body, and that can hurt our brain. Dr. Dale Bredesen talks about the importance of getting a HEPA filter. Now, Air Doctor is a very sophisticated air filter. It filters out 10 particles 100 times smaller than a regular HEPA filter. So it's very high quality. If you want to try an Air Doctor, it is a great product. I use it. I have one right next to me. I have one in my bedroom when I sleep, and I use it next to me in my office when I work during the day. So if you'd like to try an Air Doctor, go to airdoctorpro.com/love. That will give you a really nice discount.
Can you say just a little bit more about this so people know what to look for or what to try to create? So one, it seems like shared values. Religion often provides that, or can provide that, living in close proximity to each other. It sounds like you bump into people either walking around your neighborhood or going to the store or just being in close proximity. You'll bump into people who and that's a meaningful connection.
Yeah. You just bump in the parking lot, and I see my cousin. She says, "Oh, I'm going up to see my mother. She's 92. You want to come up?" "Oh yeah, I'll go upstairs." Her son is there, and her niece, who I just have never met before, she's there, and we start talking, and we're all there, like 6, 7 people there, schmoozing for like, 45 minutes, then I got to run. Wow. The love is just, it's so wonderful. To me, it's medicine.
Wow.
I don't know what that does to me, but it can't be bad. I know it's good.
Yeah, goodness. I'd love to see some data on the life of stress levels, life expectancy, dementia of people who live in these let's call them loving communities where you feel loved and supported.
This is what comes back to the culture, okay? When we started talking about
culture of dysfunction that we have.
Why are our communities broken? Why have we been fragmented? Because we had to place material over community, over relationship. Dad, I got a job. I'm going to go move across the country. I got a job. Well, no, what about the relationship? The relationship is so important. Let's see how we can make it work here. Now, if you're in a community of whatever, then, hey, wait, I know Joey's friend, Frank, is just opening a store. Maybe you could, whatever. I don't know. He has a She needs somebody in his business. You know what I mean? There's resources. When you have a community, you have resources. You're not on your own, right? You fall on hard times, then you're not on your own. My cousin's son, 17 years old, is working on a project trying to understand the homeless people. And he said to me, he says, it's homelessness. He says, poverty. I said, it is not poverty. It's socio-cultural impoverishment. Right? Because when the immigrants came, the Jews, the Italians, the Irish, Germans in the early 1900s, late 1800s, they were impoverished. New York City had more density than any place on the planet. They were impoverished. My uncle walked up 9 flights of stairs, and he had 9 people in his family in a 3-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
Up 9. Okay, this is what they did. But were they in poverty? Yes. Were they socioculturally impoverished? No, because from the old country, they came in a group. And when one was having trouble, someone else helped you. That's what I'm talking about, community. You can't function as an individual anywhere close to what you need to. And there's always challenges. So if you have a community, you have resilience. You have resources.
So community and social support, you're saying, is also a big benefit, where if you need a babysitter, someone you can trust, or you need to make ends meet, or for some reason you're out of toilet paper. I mean, that was a thing 2 years ago, right? You're out of toilet paper. Goodness gracious, it's so wonderful.
Make sure your hormones are optimized. Stimulation, exercise, right?
If we talk about exercise a little bit, exercise, that's, to me, that's the strongest data point. No one's refuted that. And people are championing exercise, both cardiovascular, strength training, grip strength. Why do you think exercise is so beneficial for the brain and reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease?
Well, I mean, I think there's over 2,000 studies on exercise, right? And so I think that's in the benefit in terms of preventing Alzheimer's. And also I think it's beneficial in terms of treating Alzheimer's, right? Or dementia, let's say. So I'd say that there's so many mechanisms for exercise. Try and count them. But I'd say
what are those? We got cardiovascular, there's metabolic, there's blood flow to the brain.
Heart rate goes up, more blood flow, more oxygenation, nutrient availability, increased BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic, more branching, increased dopamine, and there's a pleasure, norepinephrine, alertness, focus, planning, organization are better, serotonin, mood, anxiety, enlargement of your hippocampus and memory, connectivity improving between brain areas, reduce risk of stroke, reduce risk of heart attack, reduce risk of falls and their consequences. And it doesn't end. Reduce
the sleep, right? If you improve sleep, that improves everything.
So, I mean, it's not, there's no, and my sense is that exercise itself, good quality, not over-exercising, good quality exercise, gives you about a 20% risk reduction to cognitive decline and dementia.
Now, what kind of that? First of all, I love that you rattled off that list. That was a long list. That was really great. What are some exercises that where people can start? Most people are not exercising, or they're doing minimal exercise. Where can someone start? Will those start to see a benefit? Is it regular walking in the morning? Is a little bit of weight training? What would you recommend for someone who wants to get the ball rolling with exercise?
Well, it obviously depends on your age, limitations, cardiovascular status, right? So what I'm going to say has to be cleared by your doctor, right? But what I like as a really great starting point is the tiger sprints. So
tiger sprints.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that sounds exciting.
You know what I love about it? It takes 9 minutes. So, who can't do 9 minutes, right? So, and in the whole 9 minutes, your exercise is only 40 seconds. So it's even better. So here's what you do. So let's say you have a treadmill or a recumbent bike or walking, or you could even do it with, jumping jacks if you want, right? So what you do is you warm up. You're doing one of those exercises at a very comfortable pace, just kind of warming up for 3 minutes. And then you do the exercise as fast as you can, as if a tiger is chasing you. And that means when let's say you're on your bike, for example, you're not just pushing hard, you're actually thinking, well, is this how hard I'd be going if a tiger was really chasing me? And if that's how fast you would go, great, but it's probably not. You're just pushing hard, but that's not a tiger sprint. Tiger sprint is like the tiger is coming, is going to eat you. You believe me, you're all out. Right now, the first 10 seconds, you're good. You could do that. Then you actually use up the glycogen stores. You're working on lactic acid. And now, oh my God, the last 10 seconds, tough. But it's only 10 seconds. Now you're really sucking wind. You're huffing and puffing. It was only 20 seconds. Now you could stop or just walk or just keep your legs moving so you don't blood pressure, your blood flow doesn't go into your legs or something. But you don't have to even keep walking on the treadmill. You could just, it's very minimal, very minimal. 3 minutes, cool down. Another tiger sprint for 20 seconds, cool down, you're done.
So if I understand this is wonderful. I hope you're all writing this down. By the way, I have just pages of notes from our interview here. This is amazing. So a tiger sprint, 3 minutes of warm up, and then sprint or do an exercise as fast as you can, and think that a tiger's chasing you. Like really, just give it your all. And of course, you need to be clear to make sure this is safe for you. 20 seconds of that. 20 seconds of a tiger sprint. 3 minutes break. 20-second tiger sprint, and that's it. Just 2 tiger sprints.
Done. You're done. Yeah, you're done.
Oh my gosh! I mean, assuming this is safe and healthy, who can't do this, right? And then we all need to do this because, goodness gracious, we might have to, probably won't be running from a tiger, but we might have to run to catch a bus. We might need to run to, run home because we left the water running or save a child or who knows. And so being able to run your hardest for a period of time, that's fantastic. And so how often to do tiger sprints?
So I mean, it depends on your state. So assuming you can do it, like cardiovascular, save your joints, etc. If you're 250 pounds, I don't think running is the way to go. You're going to damage your joints.
Probably biking then, right?
Yeah, biking or elliptical or something. But you could do it. Be reasonable, but I'd say you could start with 3 times a week, and you could go maybe to 4 or 5 times. Now, if you're exhausted from it, it's too much. Give yourself some time. Your body will adapt, and then you could go up. So you could start with twice a week or 3 times a week and do it like that. It's only 9 minutes. And then what you'll feel when you do this is like that your whole body is like, wow, it's flooded with oxygen and nutrients and blood flow, and your brain lights up and like, whoa, everything's brighter. Wow.
Now, what do you think about exercising while fasting? Dr. Mark Mattson, who's also in this series, he talked about exercising while fasting increases production of ketones, many benefits of ketones, a great source of energy for the brain. And I didn't know this. He shared this with me. Ketones increase BDNF, similar to exercise. So that's really, really interesting. What do you think about fasting and then exercise?
I think if you're conditioned to do it, it could, but you have to now, I'm not an expert on it. Okay. So I would go with what he says, but I imagine he would say you got to condition yourself into that state. So if you're hypoglycemic and you're insulin resistant and you try to do that, you actually might have some trouble. You might get through some of it, but you're not ready. Your machinery isn't in place to generate the ketones. But over time, if you work on your insulin resistance, and that's doable for almost everybody, and you kind of gradually shift yourself so that you're not insulin resistant. Now you start moving there. Your body actually can generate the ketones. And ketones are great for the brain.
Excellent. So doing this exercise 3 times a week. So here's my morning exercise. I love your feedback on this. So I get outside pretty much. So I drink water first thing in the morning, take some minerals, and then I get outside in the sunshine quickly as I can. I'm in Miami Beach. I'm blessed to be in a place where it's very, very sunny. And then I jog in the park on the grass so it doesn't hurt my joints. But I'm doing that for about 30 minutes, trying to get my heart rate up. Oh, I do a cold plunge as soon as I wake up to spike my adrenaline. So my adrenaline's high. I'm in the sunshine, no sunglasses, jogging in the morning, listening to something either educational or spiritual. So I'm trying to hit all those things, getting my mind engaged, getting gratitude going, getting the heart engaged, out in the sunshine. And then I was going to add this towards the end. So about 30 minutes of jogging and then, doing some tigers. Now I want to do some tiger sprints at the end and really, really get into that fast aerobic pace. What do you think about that? I love it. It's beautiful. Yeah. I love that. That's great. And when I don't do it, I miss it. I'm like, man, I really don't feel as good today. I didn't get my workout. But that early morning sunshine, I think, is just such a big difference, and it's free. It's a gift. If you're a place where there's sun and you're up in the morning, please go outside. It does so many wonderful things neurochemically. It helps your mood, helps your memory, helps your sleep. So great. Lastly, we touched on this just a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What is the importance of sleep for the brain, sleep for preventing disease, sleep for healing disease? Why is sleep such an important mechanism? I'm sure you remember in the 90s, 2000s, the cool thing was to not sleep, right? The cool thing is, can you stay up all night and work? And that's where we're really, during the dot-com bubble, you didn't want to sleep. But why is sleep so important for our brain health?
Sleep is kind of like exercise and kind of like community. It's like so many things that it does. It's a time for replenishment, a time for encoding memories, and a time for your system to settle down, on the physiologic level, repair, there's so much we don't know, but it's a whole different physiological state. So you have to imagine that most of our functions are, altered during sleep, and it's a restorative state. It should be a restorative state, right? And so getting normal sleep to the degree that you can do that is essential to healing. Essential to healing. I mean, it would probably be very difficult to heal without having at least reasonably good sleep.
So this is necessary. It is essential for pretty much any sort of healing in the body or for the brain, as well as prevention. I think the data shows something to the effect of impaired sleep. So sleep deprivation, 4 hours or less a night. The next day, there's more plaque in the brain.
Like you're driving drunk too,
Goodness gracious. So even just one night of sleep affects mood, affects energy, affects decision-making, affects alertness and plaque.
Affects your detox, affects every system in the body. Every system in the body.
And so for those of you watching, please do this for yourself and train your children and families. Prioritize sleep. The current science is sleep is essential for brain health. It's essential for preventing Alzheimer's. If you want to get Alzheimer's really fast, sit on the couch, watch stressful TV, eat bad food, and don't sleep. You will get the symptoms of dementia very, very quickly because your brain will not be operating well. If you want to live a long, healthy life, prioritize sleep. It is absolutely necessary for optimal health, optimal brain health. And if you want to prevent Alzheimer's disease, it is absolutely required.
And one other topic that I'd like to cover.
Yes, please.
Oh, I think it is very important. And it's about spirituality and our understanding of how the universe works.
Oh, wonderful. I love this. I wasn't expecting this. This is terrific.
Really, this is the bedrock, okay? This is the bedrock. So I'm gonna start with a little analogy. Imagine you had a TV and you took the TV to a tribe, some remote part of the world. They're never exposed to Western civilization. It's a battery-operated TV. And you go and you show them the TV and turn it on, and they go, whoa, what's going on there? One guy in the tribe says, well, there's little people in there, obviously, and there's little people, there's an orchestra, and there's a different, a lot of sets, and, there's miniature people, obviously. Another guy says, no, actually, it's coming through the air. You really can't see it. It's coming from thousands of miles away. There's nothing in there in that TV. There's nothing. What are people going to believe? What are they going to believe? What do you think?
I would believe little people. That makes the most sense to me. I'm seeing little people on the screen. There's little people behind the glass.
There's little people behind the glass. That's what it is. Wow, it's amazing. And how did they shrink them? Okay, but that's not the truth. The truth is it's coming through invisibly, right? But you don't have a reference for that in this tribe. You're like, what? That doesn't make any sense at all, right? So I use that as an analogy to say our current understanding of how the world works is upside down. We're so materially based naturally because of our senses, right? But 95% of the universe is dark matter, dark energy. We don't even know what's going on. What do you think is junk? Really? Do you think it's junk?
I love how that changed in physics. In 2000, it was, space is empty space. There's nothing there. And now the current belief is that empty space between planets, between us and the sun, or, our sun and, stars very far away, that empty space is now 90% of the mass in the universe. It's not empty space. It's the majority. I love that. That's how science changed. It's so interesting.
Where our view, it's kind of like the electromagnetic spectrum. It's very wide, right? But our visual capacity is in a very narrow band, extremely narrow band of perception, right? but there's all kinds of other things going on that are there that we cannot perceive, right? So what I have concluded, and I'm a skeptic, okay, and I have concluded that we think that all of our brain and our cognition is all resides in the brain. I don't think so. I now, you'll think I'm psychotic. I have a reason, two experiences actually, that I can't find any other explanation except that there's something called the Akashic record. I don't know if you ever heard of the Akashic.
I've heard of that. Can you explain a little bit about that?
It's an idea that all the information and experiences and everything that ever happened, could happen, will happen in the world, it actually all exists already. It's out there. It's all there. And we can access parts of it, creativity or this. You can access this. How exactly and what it takes, I don't know if anybody knows. Some people have more abilities. Some people don't. They're charlatans. It's a whole, fuzzy thing. But I had an experience where I was preparing a lecture on post-traumatic stress syndrome for the Institute of Functional Medicine. And I was giving it, I think, in February 2015, 2016. And I was trying to recall a patient I treated 10 years earlier with an unusual treatment that it worked so well that I wanted to find her chart so I could make the slides, right? But I couldn't find her chart. I couldn't, the computer, the hard charts, I looked for 2 months, 3 months, can't find her chart. One day, and I'm telling you this very factually, okay? Very factually. One day I get off my exercise bike and I have this thought that pops into my head. Today, I'm going to know her name with absolute certainty. Like today, I have an interview with Robert, at 2:00. Absolute certainty. Now, I stopped. Wait, did I just think that? I stopped because I wanted to register. Did I really think that? I did. Bizarre thought because I have no basis in fact for that thought. I have no basis for that. I've looked, turned everything upside down, and it wasn't a thought of, oh, gee, I hope today I find her chart. It wasn't that. It was today I'm going to find her chart. I'm going to find out her name. Today I'll know her name. That was the exact thought. Today I'll know her name. Today I'm going to know her. 3 hours later, I go to the office. My office manager who opens all the mail gives me an envelope to open. It's marked personal. I open it up. Inside is a letter from her son. Now I know her name. Now, this is bizarre. And this, to me, does not fall in the category of coincidence. Oh, I haven't seen you in 25 years and then you just called. Okay, coincidence. You know what I mean? Maybe not coincidence. This is like a premonition, a precognition, or something like that. And so I asked myself, and I've actually asked many people, mathematicians, physicists, rabbis, like, how do you explain this? And there's no explanation except that somehow I received information, I'm going to say from the Akashic record, or from where, I don't know, that gave me information about something that existed that I had no way of knowing existed. I had absolutely no way, and I wasn't trying to access it, okay? I'm not trying to access it. I'm busy exercising, This told me, as a scientist, that the only conclusion that I can come up with is that I received information in the form of a thought that didn't come from my brain. It couldn't come from my brain.
And just so I can understand the phenomenon, so you're exercising, you get this thought, I will know her name, or today I will know her name, and then you receive a letter that has those very words.
3 hours later.
3 hours later.
Has her name, her son's name. So now I know her name. Now I could find the chart, right? 3 hours later, I go to a different location, my office. My secretary gives me a sealed envelope. She says, for you, open it up. I had treated her son too. So there's the name.
And I'm sorry, the backstory, I got lost. You were looking for this person's name prior to this?
3 months.
For 3 months. Okay, so now I understand. So for 3 months, you're looking for this person's name. You can't find it. And it's important to you to be able to help this person. You're exercising. Today, I'm going to know her name. Today it's going to come to me. And then...
With absolute certainty. Now, many days I was like, oh, I hope I know. How can I find the chart? I want to find the chart. Maybe I should look here. In other words, this was an ongoing attempt. But it was like, oh, today I'm going to know her name. This is the day. It's going to happen today. Today I'm going to know her name with absolute certainty. And it was so bizarre because I had no basis. It wasn't like, oh, I put 3 people on the case and they're reporting to me today. I don't know. It was really weird. So it tells me that if you want to call it Akashic record, I don't know what you want to call it, but that there's more going on here that meets the eye. And that's why I use the analogy of the TV, because if this is what I want to get to, we live life where we think we have to have control. We're taught that we should have control. We love control. Of course we love control, but how much do we really have control over? The truth is, not much. Things go our way a lot of the time, not because we have control, but because they're going our way. What do you have control over? You have control over choices, your attitudes. That's what you have control over. You got to work on that. Now, when you understand that you give it up to God, the universe, Gaia, whatever you want to call that other thing, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. When you give it up and say, I trust and I rely on you, I am relying on you. I am relying on the flow. I will make the best decision I can make. I will do what I need to do. And then I will trust and I rely on you. I rely on you and I will talk to you and I will interact with you. You, the power, the being, whatever it is, I will acknowledge your presence in my life and how important you are in my life. When you do that, now you don't have to have control, because you don't anyway. Now you have resilience. Now you have resilience. Now you can go, so-called bad things can happen, but you have resilience. I could go into this a lot deeper, but to me, that is where you're going to find your best resilience, right there. And that reduces your stress, and that helps your immune system, and that helps you sleep, and that helps your relationships, that helps you to love, that helps everything we're talking about.
I love this. So the number one, I agree with everything you've said here. So the number one thing we can do to reduce our stress, which is perhaps the number one thing we can do for our health, because it affects every aspect of health, is understanding that we don't control everything in our life, and to relinquish that control, to understand that we're surrendering that to a force, to a loving force that's much greater than us, that's really looking out for us. So if you can trust in God, the universe, whatever term you use, metaphysics, whatever, if you trust in something greater than ourselves, we can relax and trust that we're being taken care of and we're being helped. We don't need to control everything. We can just do our best, make our own decisions, and then, as you said, make decisions about our mood and our state of consciousness, and then just surrender to this loving force that surrounds us. And that's a much less stressful, much more beautiful, loving way to live.
Yes. And I would say that really it doesn't just surround us, it's in us. It's at our core. This loving force is at our core. And this is my philosophy. You can buy it or not. This is just my philosophy. This is a Jewish, Kabbalistic, Hasidic philosophy. This is my, I'm like a philosopher, right? I'm trying to figure out what is this whole mystery about anyway? Always trying to figure it out. So this is my best conclusion at this point. And I've been working on this for 40 years. So I think that in my mind, okay, that if I'm going to call it God, because that's what I call it, the creator, is one entity. So a singularity, right? And that what's the one thing a singularity can't have? I'll ask you, what's the one thing a singularity can't have?
I don't know. I would say multiple something.
Yeah, relationship.
Oh, interesting.
Can't have relationship. If it's just you can't have relationship. So we, in my opinion, are God, or this intelligence, or whatever, God, the one aspect of that God trying to have a relationship. So how do you have a relationship? You have to split into two. So one part can relate to the other, right? So through subsequent concealments, through different universes, worlds, whatever you want to call them, we call them Sephirot and Kabbalah, whatever. There's a down hiding till we get to the material realm. I believe that the quantum realm is like the curtain that we're peeking behind to the next level above us, but there's like 9 or 8 or 9 levels above that. But whatever it is, we're in a universe here where everything's relating as if we're duality, as if I'm you and you're separate from me, and this desk is separate from me. Everything's separate and individual. That's how it looks. It's not how it is. Physicists will tell you it's all one suit. It's one thing, right? Right? It's one thing. So, but we live in our God, the consciousness in us, our observing consciousness, which is God consciousness, is watching and relating to the mouse, to the water, to the person you love, maybe to God, right? Where it's all about relationship. It's all about relationship. And God within everything, even a stone has some kind of consciousness that we can't appreciate. This is my belief. God is wanting relationship. And the best relationship is positive, loving relationship. It doesn't mean love, unconditional love all the time, because sometimes you need limits and boundaries. You could cripple someone with love. You can cripple people with love. So you need balance. But I believe that that's what's behind it. So now, when you think about turning it over to this God, this being, whatever, and that's actually running you, that's what you're here for, is to be this godly thing, this godly purpose, this godly relationship in the world. Wow, everything is meaningful. And there you have, to get into that mindset and to cultivate that mindset is healing, it's gratitude, it's love, it's connection, it's purpose. And you're part of this great matrix through time of God having relationship. That's who you are. That's who you are. And wow, that's unbelievable. Just unbelievable. It's a miracle. It's not natural. It's not normal. It's supernatural.
Goodness, I'm without words except just thank you and just massive gratitude for sharing that. I love hearing that from someone who's had tremendous success in the world, great experience helping so many people, and then imparting this wisdom on us that we are divine beings, and the purpose of life is to relate to each other. And you shared this in culture and community, right? We're relating to each other. All those interactions are significant. And what a gift life is, to be to be a divine being, to be alive right now, to have these relationships. And the idea that everything has meaning in that if we are indeed divine beings, that every experience has meaning, and then therefore to trust and relax, and therefore reduce our stress, immediate benefit, that almost makes stress and worry kind of, I don't want to say sinful, but against what the Creator wants, right? Because the Creator doesn't want us to worry. The Creator wants us to be present with whatever is. If that's pain, be present with that pain. If that's a challenge, be present with the challenge. But don't worry and stress, because that not only impairs our physical health, but that hurts the quality of our life, and then also the quality of our relationships.
Well, it's, I'll say that when you stress, and I'm not perfect with this, but I stress, when one stresses, it's actually a statement of disbelief in a power greater than yourself. Because if you really did understand this and you did trust and did rely, you'd be like, everything's for the good. Everything's for the good. And if it's not for my good, sometimes it's not for your good, sometimes it's for the greater good, right? Sometimes you take a hit for the greater good. That happens, right? But everything's for the good. I mean, it's a kind of a little bit like a Oriental rug, on one side are these knots. It's horrible. Looks terrible. Turn it over. It's a work of art.
Goodness, that's so beautiful. And then I think it's really interesting, the idea it's not always for our good, but for the collective good. If we look at Vincent van Gogh, or Van Gogh, if we want to pronounce it, his life was a life of struggle and almost mental torture. There was no good psychiatry at the time. Like, the only drug he had for relief was alcohol. There weren't effective ways to treat him. He lived a life of suffering. I don't know if he had romantic partnerships. He was crazy, and he sold 2 paintings in his life. One of them he paid his bar tab. That one sits at Yale right now. But that was one of the paintings he sold, was to pay off his bar tab. And now his paintings have provided joy and beauty and a wonderful experience to millions of people. He's one of the most famous artists in the world. Only sold 2 paintings in his life, lived a life of suffering. But his life is now a gift to all of us and potentially all of humanity for the future. And his life might have been suffering in many, many ways, but it was beautiful in that he got to paint. But such a blessing to so many of us that we get to enjoy his art.
And now it's like pain we can't control, right? Suffering is optional.
Can you say a little bit more about that? That's such a massive idea. I'd like to people to be able to take action on that.
Yeah. So, you break a bone, it's painful, right? There's nothing you can do about that. It's real. This dimension is real as could be. How you conceptualize it and how you react to it, that's your suffering. Oh, it's terrible. I'm never going to get better. What if I get an infection? What if I die? I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do that. This is going to be horrible. It's going to ruin my life. Whatever. That suffering tortures you. That's optional, because if you really trust this universal intelligence power that you are an integral part of and you have a specific role in, then, and the goodness of that, then you say, well, I wouldn't have signed up for this, but there must be something really good in store, and you can't know what it is. That's where you rely and you trust. And then you have to develop that. We're not trained that way, right? That's something you work on developing. It's a lifetime of work, but that's what you have to work on developing. And then your suffering diminishes. The pain, you may have pain. That's part of life, right? But the suffering is optional.
That's beautiful. So suffering is not physical pain. Suffering is the thoughts and emotional stress that we feel, or the emotional upset we feel about our circumstances.
The anticipation of what might come as a result of our circumstances.
So it's yes, interesting. Suffering is often worry about pain in the future, right? So you're experiencing double pain. You got, I hurt my shoulder. It's hurt now, and I'm thinking, well, what if I can't do this event that I really want to do? What if I have trouble traveling? What if this never heals? What if I'm not able to lift weights, and then I age more rapidly? I'm now suffering all this stuff in the future, which is really, really even worse.
So to bring it back home to dementia, if you're young and you're trying to prevent dementia or illness in general, right, and you cultivate these kind of attitudes, right, you do your work hard. Do right by people, relate to people. We all have repair to do, okay? We all want to recover our core selves. We want to wipe off the schmutz of our childhood and our environment. We want to get back to our core selves. But if you do this work where you get to this point, then think about how much lower your stress is, right? And if your stress is lower, I don't know, what'd you put on? It's 5 years, 7 years to your life?
Not to mention quality of life. Imagine the quality of your life without stress.
Your life, and not to mention the quality of the people's lives around you.
And how many more people do you affect positively? If I have less stress, I can help more people. Yeah. Now, what's the quality of my life? Oh my goodness! And I want to review this thinking pattern that you went through. This is really great. So please write this down, everyone. So pain is optional. Or excuse me, pain is not optional, but suffering is. And when pain happens, it could be a challenge in your business, challenge in a relationship, or physical pain. You can go through this exercise. These words seem really helpful. Number one, you know what? If it were up to me, I would not have signed up for this. But since this is happening, I trust in a force that's greater than me. And somehow this is part of the divine plan for my life and experience right here. So either this is going to help me directly, or this is for the greater good. And so, I probably wouldn't have checked this box. Yes, please break my leg, right before my daughter's graduation. Probably wouldn't have signed up for that. But trust that this is greater. Either you'll experience a benefit directly, which is usually the case, or it also has a greater benefit to the greater good.
Yes. Now you have to build that mindset, if you want to call it that software. You got to install that software before the trauma starts, before the pain. Otherwise, you don't have it to draw on. So this is work you have to do it now. Now, today, you've got to start today, because if you don't build it up, it won't be there in your toolkit.
That's great. And this is almost like mental resilience, right? It's mental emotional resilience. And again, you bring it back to an earlier point. Community also builds resilience. And so really it's about building mental resilience, and that really helps lower stress and helps us improve the quality of life, our health, and then our experience in the world. I agree with what you said about us being divine beings. We were divinely created to have a good time and to help each other and to enjoy life and to live our purpose. We were not divinely created to experience stress, worry, and anxiety. That's possible. I don't think that's the purpose of life. I think the purpose of life is joy and love and contribution, whatever your purpose is.
Yeah. So what I like to say, just if you don't mind, I'll give.
Please, this is fantastic.
Well, I think that to bring it to an analogy people can relate to, the way we're raised in this non-spiritual materialistic thinking, causal linear thinking, it's kind of like having a keyboard. Some of the keys work. I pay my gas bill, the gas doesn't get turned off. Or I go to the store, buy groceries. It seems to work as long as I drive the speed limit. Okay. Some of the keys work, but some of the keys don't work. Oh, I'll be a little more greedy. I gotta be a little greedy to get what I need. You know what I mean? I gotta maybe I won't really tell the truth, or I'll hang out with some of these people, or whatever it is that we don't have a keyboard that's fully functional and fully operational. And so when you start to work in this spiritual realm, however it works for you, your keyboard starts working better. And you start to when you start to recognize that the universe, you're actually, whether you know it or not, you're actually in dialogue with the universe, with this power or whatever you want to call it. And when you open yourself to it and interact with it in a mindful way, you kind of open the channels of blessing, because the universe is good and it wants to bring good into the world. But if you choose to do it by the materialistic realm, you'll live in the materialistic realm, and it's a tough realm to live in.
Can we say it again? I really want to make sure that I understand this. I remember channels of gratitude and opening up to a great life, and then the greediness, the keyboard not working, that impairs quality of life, and that's not why we're here.
Right. So you want to basically what you're doing through meditation or prayer, okay? It's like kind of you're welcoming the Creator's will or the universe's will into relationship, which is what the Creator wants, with the creation, right? You're inviting that force into your life, right? Inviting the Creator's will into your life. And the more that will is invited by prayer or meditation and however, the more you acknowledge this primary source, primary cause, the more it becomes manifested. And so you open up the pathways, let's call them, of providence, of blessing, of whatever, I don't know what you want to call it. And so it's important to engage in this consciousness, inviting and accessing the Creator in your life.
I love this, accessing the Creator in your life. So when we invite God into our lives, we invite divine blessing into our lives. One, we acknowledge a source greater than ourselves, which has all kinds of benefits of reducing stress and improving the quality of our life. So acknowledge there's something greater than us, whatever that is, true for you. And then you'll see more of that in your life. And this opens up the pathway to receive even more blessings. So first of all, something's greater than us. Look for it in your life. You'll notice it, and then you'll start noticing more of it. And this gives us access to the divine. In other words, this gives us access to that, to God's will.
It's actually like developing a skill. It's really like a skill development, because I remember when I was 30, I started drinking scotch. Nothing heavy, but I was drinking scotch and I couldn't stand it. But then I developed a taste for it. And before you knew it, I could tell the differences between different scotches and whatever. But I didn't have that skill, right, when I started. I had to engage in that process and then develop the discernment, right? This is a skill that you're developing of communicating with the Creator, the divine force, whatever you want to call it, seeing it in your life, talking to you in your life through things that happen in your life, and inviting that divine good presence into your life, however you want to do that.
I love that. Making this a skill, that really makes it really practical. Oh my goodness. If I would have known that we were going to have this much fun, this is just fantastic. Dr. Hedaya, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for your work in the world. You were one of the pioneers in helping reverse Alzheimer's disease. You've done that in your clinical practice. You're recording the data. You're sharing the data, even though you're being not treated very nicely by the established medical establishment. You're out there sharing the data, showing what's possible with the brain. You're really, and you're doing this interview for free. And trying to help, hundreds of thousands, millions of people with your information. That's just wonderful. And then you're a scientist, and you're brave enough and courageous enough to share what's true for you about your spiritual philosophy, the importance of community, inviting God's will into our lives, and how this not only improves our health, reduces stress, but also improves the quality of our life and just the many blessings in our lives. Just thank you so much for who you are, the work that you're doing, and the work that you continue to do.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this open-ended discussion, because I can talk about the science and everything, but it's not that. It's really my primary mission. It's maybe co-equal or maybe primary to get this, really switch how people are thinking about how the world works and about the relationship to this divine force.